Hello, I'm George Listencier, and welcome to Dialogue, a program that explores the world of ideas and issues in national and international affairs, history, and culture. You might be tempted to think that the future is like the weather, a subject that attracts far more talk than action. But one organization, the Ford Foundation, is making a huge investment in the future, providing graduate scholarships to promising students from developing countries. These students are equipping themselves to address the most critical issues of their home countries. They represent groups that have not traditionally been given the support they deserve. To visit with them is to see the face of the future and to hear the voice of hope. My guests are Fatou Aminata Lo, Mushengyezi, Idemudio Edilfo Lawrenece, Mayu Mohanna, and Sandeep Kindo. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're a very attractive group, I must say. So
Thanks.
let me see if I'm up to it today. Fatou, let's start with you. Your home country is Senegal.
Yes.
And you are particularly keen on women's issues. This I certainly know. And I think you're studying sustainable development
Yes.
in terms of getting your master's through this program.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the first and obvious question, Fatou, is how does that degree, or how will that degree, relate to the kinds of things you want to do for women in Senegal?
Thanks, George, for having me. Well, getting a master's in sustainable development will help me address women's poverty in Senegal. Senegal is a small country of 10 million people. Women represent 52% of the population. And when we are talking about issues like poverty, women suffers are the first group
Right.
on that issue.
Women
So,
suffer the most from poverty.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm hoping that with this degree, I can go back and implement projects to help women get out of that poverty.
What kinds of projects, Fatou, would they be? Educational, health, variety?
Absolutely. I think there is an emphasis that needs to be put on women's education and women's health, because in the past 2 decades, actually, my country has been through structural adjustment programs. And as we know, with government spending a little less, or much less actually, on education and health, women have had extra burden on their shoulders on those 2 sectors. And I'm thinking that it should be very powerful to get more girls into school and help them achieve higher education, because that is, enrollment is one thing, but then completion of high education is also very important. When we're talking about healthcare as well, women have special needs, especially when we're talking about maternal health, and I think that those needs to be addressed.
Fatou, let me ask you for a brief comment on something that fascinates me about Senegal. It's a fascinating country.
Yes.
And as a country, it's taken a lead in a lot of human rights issues. I think it was the first to sign the International Criminal Court Convention, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So maybe it's a provocative question, Fatou, but very briefly, why does Senegal have a problem then bringing women in, or has the government been getting over that problem?
Yes, actually, Senegal is a country that has ratified most of the international agreements. And if we're talking about institutions, basically, the systems provide all the same rights for women. So it's written and it's there. And currently, there are only 2 points maybe on which women are still fighting, which is income taxation and still a little bit on employment.
Excellent.
Issues related to employment. So yes, totally. Your question is a good one in the sense that one might wonder why education and health are still issues. But what happened is that there is a commitment. The political commitment is there and is very strong.
Right.
But when you're looking at, for example, the budget, you're doing a gender budget analysis, what you realize is that not enough money is put into getting women where they need to be.
That's an excellent answer, too. And I appreciate the fact that progress has been made and that now the big job is to complete that progress. Good luck to you, Fatou. I think
Thank
you're on
you.
your way, and I think Senegal's lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Aaron Mushengyezi, I greet you as a fellow, not perhaps writer, but sort of the English major, a person who appreciates fine literature. You are a published author in your native Uganda.
Yes.
And you've written here quite a bit as well. And you are pursuing a doctorate, as I understand it, at the University of Connecticut.
That's true.
And you have a very interesting goal I want you to talk about, and that is to return to Uganda, promote literature, but also extend the benefits of literature to children, millions of them. Why is that important?
Well, it is important, George, because, you know, children have been neglected. They are seen as secondary citizens. And I could tell you that in Uganda, I'm probably the first person to do a doctorate focusing on children's literature. And my vision is really to tap the traditional resource of our people, the traditional stories, the riddles, the nursery rhymes, which die away as the old people pass away. So, but these are important resources that train children to be imaginative, that taught them a lot of things in life. And once we lose these stories, we'll have lost a very big resource.
That's a powerful point. It preserves the history as well as...
To preserve the history as well as the cultural heritage of our people.
You know, that point you made about being the first to get a doctorate is a very powerful one as well. And I'm just wondering, I think of this in terms of all of you, but let me ask you specifically, Aaron, what this means to you, your family, your community, the fact that you're participating in a program like this and return to your country to fulfill the role you plan to fulfill.
I'm glad you asked that, George, because in my family we were 15 children, and I was the first to go to college in my family. I remember at one time I had to walk over 10 kilometers
wow.
on bare feet to go to school. So for me to be able to pursue a doctorate in the United States was a very big achievement. And many of my siblings dropped out of school. They couldn't get tuition. So for me, it's a realization of a dream that the Ford Foundation is investing in, not only to train people in skills that are crucial to our societies, but also to give us this international exposure that we never dreamt about, especially me who comes from a minority community that has really not had access to education and to modern living. Yeah. So for me, it's a dream come true.
That's a wonderful answer. And I mean, I just listening as a native of this country, thinking of someone who went through what you did to go to school each day and to express that kind of commitment, that's extraordinary.
Thank you.
Our next guest, Idemudio, Edilfo Lawrenece, comes to us from Nigeria, and Adam Bartley will join me as we speak. Idemudio, your dream, your goal, is to return to your native Nigeria and to establish there a library for the deaf, a professional library, I think it's important to add. And you're pursuing your master's here at Gallaudet toward that purpose. Tell us briefly what a library like that would mean. What would it do? Why do you want to do it?
From my observation,
since I arrived here, and from what I've learned since I've come here, I've discovered that as I went back home, there wasn't enough reading there. That's the reason our educational standards are low right now. So I thought that there was one way to bridge this gap would be to collect books and establish a library for deaf people. I hope that we can develop this as well for other handicapped peoples in my country so that we can develop a way to pass on our culture to them. And I hope to do not only the library, but also provide vocational training, including computer education, so that people will have hands-on experiences of what schools outside their country are like, and so that people are fully prepared to take on the challenge of education.
That's a very inspiring answer, very inspiring, Idemudio. I like that aspect of the practical training that you mentioned, that you're bringing into this. That's extremely important indeed. And I guess for a brief comment, I'd love to know your sense of the Nigerian government's commitment to the whole idea of helping people with disabilities. Is there progress being made on the government side as well?
True. Where handicapped people
It's true that for handicapped people in Nigeria, we face a serious struggle because of the legal situation for us.
Government truly want to help.
The government does indeed want to help, but they do so on paper and not in action. And so I would like to see a center established so that handicapped peoples can have outlets for sports and society and a number of things. And the government isn't really used to meeting our needs, because the government has a limited budget which they have to determine how to divide. And so we do this to encourage the government to provide legal rights for people with handicaps and disabilities, and we would like to see a place established so that if people are having troubles, then they can go to...
It's like, as I told them before,
as I told people before, with the National Association for the Deaf. One moment, the interpreter is seeking clarification. Oh, the government's services towards deaf people and handicapped people have always been held within one ministry and have been hopped around ministry to ministry. And so we feel much like the unwanted child who's been thrown from one ministry to the other to the other. So we're facing that now by asking for the establishment of a separate organization that can focus on the needs specifically of handicapped people.
Right.
And we would like to have one administration that we could turn to.
That's an excellent answer, too. And it reminds me, quite frankly, of things we face in this country, or have faced traditionally, in trying to get the necessary attention to the issues of the disabled. These are world issues, actually, we're discussing, and I think you help us understand ourselves as we speak. And speaking of speaking, let me turn now to Mayu Mohanna, who comes to us from Peru, is a very talented photographer, which of course is one of the great arts of our world and our time. And I know, Mayu, you have devoted a lot of attention to documentaries and so forth. And I guess the first question is this. Do you see, through the scholarship you've done here, the study you've done here, the making of documentaries, the use of photography as a way of educating people about development in Peru, in your case? Is that the role it plays? What does it do? Does it educate them?
Thank you. Photography and documents in general right now are very important in the moment that we are living now. You know, Peru now is a country in a transitional moment. We are moving from a dictatorial government to the democracy moment. So after having 20 years of violence, now my media, my colleagues and me and a strong group of people are using media to educate people, to let the next generations know that what happened in Peru in the last 20 years should not repeat never again.
Yeah, you know, Mayu, you remind me that you speak of the Sendero Luminoso problems, the violence, yes, of course, that was horrible. So is photography in that sense a healing device to make people, to actually heal a nation? Is that saying too much? Or?
Yes, no, it's absolutely right, the way that you describe. It's also helping to reconcile communities and to talk about what happened in the past, because right now photography is having a strong, is supporting the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We, the photography media, did an exhibition which came a very important memorial now. The name of this exhibition is Yuyanapac, which in lengua Quechua means to remember.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So we did a big with research, and we collect pictures from 90 archive, and we did a house to remember. So people, Peruvians, we are walking through this house through 27 rooms, and we are seeing the horrors that we did.
You know,
so we are learning about our own story through images.
That, again, is a powerful answer. It reminds me of Aaron's earlier comment that the arts, in this sense, literature and photography, are a way of bringing history, connecting the people with their past. And I think that says it, well, that may not say it all, but I think that's a very powerful message in itself. And I would guess, Mayu, one last very quick comment, women and children, the suffering of women and children, and the indigenous people as well, this must be a big part of your subjects.
Yes. Well, I did photography for 20 years, and now I am moving. I am moving to film.
Oh.
Yeah,
good.
because I found that we need to give the word to the people. So now I am collecting testimonies in video and combining photography. Actually, that's the skill that I win here doing my master program.
Mayu,
a new tool.
It's very rare that we get to have breaking news on our program, but I think we can tell the world that Mayu Mohanna is moving into filmmaking now, and I think that's very wonderful. You bring the same talent to that you brought to photography. I think we're all going to be very much enriched by it. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Sandeep, Kindo, you, like Mayu, indeed like everyone here, I think has a very strong interest in the indigenous, the rights of the indigenous. And in your case, it's particularly interesting because you're a lawyer.
Right.
And I think in your time here in Notre Dame, you pursued a master's in international law, human rights law, that kind of thing. Tell us briefly then, Sandeep, those of us who are not instructed in the law, how do you see that? How do you make the connection between international law as it exists, with whatever flaws it may have, to the help you seek for the indigenous? How do you use it?
Well, thank you, first of all, for giving us some sort of social visibility. Well, there are two movements. One movement is at local levels, in the country levels, and the other movement is at international level. And these days we have international mechanisms where once we have exhausted domestic remedies, we can go to international courts or international forums like the UN and pursue our complaints. Those cases or petitions or complaints do change state behavior. And the idea is that some of these marginalized sections, like the tribals, if they are there in international courts or in the UN, I think it's great. It's a matter of being proud, and I think it's going to bridge the gap so that the movement can become more strong at local levels, international levels, and you connect all the movement.
That helps me a lot. It's a very clear answer. And it leads me to another question I just thought of too. That you came here as a lawyer, you're getting an additional degree, and you've just made this very, very fine answer about the need to connect the community and international groups. You're going back to India to found an organization, as I understand it.
Yes.
Will it be one that makes these connections?
Yes, it will make the connections. This organization is about organizing tribal lawyers and retired judges together as a force to reckon with. And once they're organized together, I think it can be a good movement in the local levels and country levels, and perhaps connected to the international movement.
I'm going to follow your career with interest, as we say. Something to watch. Indeed, all of your careers. Sandeep, you also have another distinction that is, in terms of even of our group, is very unusual. You have finished your scholarship, and you've been a staff person. Is that correct?
That's
with this program?
Yeah.
Now, let me see if I remember my numbers, and I'm a little nervous about talking to a lawyer without knowing my facts. But I do believe that something like 900 fellows have come through this program to this point.
Right.
There's a commitment to bring 3,000 through by 2012.
That's right.
And this, I think I know certainly for a fact, that the Ford Foundation has committed $300 million, which is probably the largest thing it's ever done. Very briefly, I hope not bluntly, has it all been worth it? Do you think it's doing what it should do? I mean, as someone who's been in the program and has helped administer it, do you see it fulfilling a role?
Yes, it is. I think it's a historic program, and the fellows are committed. There's unity between their philosophy and their compassion and action, and these fellows are very committed, and most of them have already begun work with the communities. And we cannot accept returns right now, but I'm sure miracles won't happen overnight, but over a period of time, you'll see some sort of social change and social justice.
That's good, too. These are investments in people, and they have to be watched through the lives of the people. But already the first returns sound very encouraging. Well, I want to thank you all. This has been marvelous to get this sense of what you're doing. You've been very, very eloquent about it. And let me ask a few general questions, if I may, just to get some sense of how the group feels about certain things. Fatou, I'm going to quote you, if you don't mind. You made a wonderful quote. Let me see if I got it right. That issues of social justice are now worldwide. I think you said that in a meeting you attended, or you offered that viewpoint. Anybody can jump in here for a brief comment.
Absolutely, because, George, many communities in our countries face all kinds of discrimination, marginalization. In my own country, there are communities that have not even had access to higher education, to economic resources. So this passion that the Ford Foundation is exposing us to, the realization that there is a lot we can do. I think there is one scholar who said, vision without action is only a dream. Mm-hmm. So unless we turn these dreams into realities by being seen to be of use to our societies, we're not going to make an impact. And in fact, with another fellow from Uganda, an alumnus, we decided to found a non-profit organization so that we can see practical ways of dealing with issues of women's rights, with children's rights, with tapping resources that can help advance our people's dreams. So it's a very big dream indeed.
Once again, an excellent answer to it.
Well, we cannot achieve peace without social justice. Most of the violence or ethnic violence or disturbances happen because of lack of social justice. And we can achieve peace by targeting social justice. And social justice can be achieved if we bring marginalized section people in some sort of cultural, intercultural or social understanding and appreciation. So we have to bring marginalized people along with the dominant social groups together so that there is interactions and cultural changes.
Again, I appreciate that. And quite frankly, sitting as an American, I'm thinking that's something we should be concerned with too, because inequalities throughout the world are not only unjust, but I think they threaten everyone. I mean, that's just my quick reaction. And I'm going to quote something Aaron said and open it up. And Fatou, you might be the first to comment on this, and anyone, please do jump in on it. Aaron, I've been following your career with interest. You've been kept to writing up here in the United States. You wrote something about being a freshman at Connecticut. It's pretty amusing. One of the judgments you made very graciously and very humorously was that Americans simply don't know enough about the world. I mean, they'll give you a whatever response to almost any question you ask about it, and I can see you're nodding your head, so I got that right. Do everyone else feel that way, that people in this country, your fellow students, could use more knowledge? Fatou, maybe you'd want to comment on that.
Yes, definitely. I think that my experience has been quite similar, even if I was very pleased to be in a program that emphasized international.
Even in that program.
Absolutely. And yeah, but definitely I feel like I have every day and up to now through my work, to my daily work, I have to share more about my country, more about the rest of the world. And yeah, definitely I share.
Maybe I get brief responses from Idemudio and Mayu. First, Idemudio.
The same thing applies to me. Since I've arrived, many of my teachers are very curious to know about how deaf people cope in Nigeria. And when I give them an explanation or tell them stories of Nigeria, they assume that people here are much luckier because they have everything that they need. Whereas many people in Nigeria have nothing, and every day is a struggle to become who you wish to be.
Become who you wish to be. Wow. Powerful phrase. Mayu.
Yeah, yes, I had the experience to study in New York, which is a multicultural city, and I found because it's lots of Latin Americans and Asian, and in my school, I found some exchanges, very interesting exchanges, but still I keep working in my personal country history for the 2 last years, and to ask for a response in the classes and with teachers and theses, and yes, I need to talk about my own interests and to look for what I really wanted.
You know, what strikes me about that answer, Mayu, is that even a strongly multicultural city like New York needs to come to terms with this too. It's something all Americans should be better at in trying to understand the world.
Absolutely, yes.
You know, one thing I would like to comment is it strikes me that we use this phrase developing world. I think we use it too loosely sometimes, because what we really mean is the countries who are materially developing, but spiritually, intellectually, culturally, they're as rich as anyone else. And you know, we need only mention names like Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, for us to realize that people from, quote, developing countries have led the world. So if you could give me just a brief comment, this is one of these little quick questions toward the end of a good conversation. Who inspires you personally? Aaron, you start.
Well, many people, I would say, but I was amazed at how Mandela could rise from a prisoner to an international statesman.
Right. So for you, it would be Nelson Mandela.
You know, who is respected globally. He's such a big influence to me.
I share that feeling. I do. Fatou.
Nelson Mandela.
Mandela too. 2 votes for Nelson Mandela. 3 votes. But Idemudio?
For me, I think Martin Luther King.
For me, it would be Martin Luther King Jr., who has inspired me because his nonviolent approach to civil rights for African Americans or black people. And so I think the same thing can apply to the deaf and other handicapped persons in Nigeria.
Excellent. Sandeep?
Dr. Ambedkar, he belonged to a lower caste. He wrote the Indian Constitution. He was the person, in spite of all adversaries and social conditions, he rose up and argued his case for the marginalized sections of the people.
That's wonderful too. Mayu?
Solomon Lerner, who was working in silence for social justice in Peru for a long time, and he became the president of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And he is a person who inspired me a lot from the last.
Actually, me too, Mayu.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all very much. You've been absolutely marvelous. It's been great to meet you now. And like I say, I will follow your lives with interest, so always look upon me as a friend.
Thank you.
I'm honored to know you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's our program. We appreciate your comments, and you can reach us at dialogue at wwic.si.edu. I'm George Liston, CA, and you've been watching Dialogue, a co-production of the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars and MHC Networks. Please join us again right here next week, and thanks for watching.